Welcome to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show. And making news this time around is there's a brand new Star Wars fan film again, so close to the last release. It's by a YouTube channel called Star Wars Tales Untold, and this is called The Secret Duel of How Anakin Got His Scar. Okay, so a review of that later on in the show, but it's called The Secret Duel of How Anakin Got His Scar by Star Wars Tales Untold. Brand new fan film, which I'll be reviewing later in the show. To more news, Kylo Ren, the one of the evil stars in the episodes 7, 8, and 9, everyone's favourite villain, along with Vader and stuff like that, is coming, making a return next month. In fact, through a comic book series, and it's called The Fall of Kylo Ren. So if you've been lacking a bit of Kylo Ren, well, next month you'll be able to get him via some comic books. Anyway, so that's coming out next month. That is pretty much the news for this time around. Let's get now into views. Views is my opinion, viewpoint, or even a view idea that I have with the story. And this time around, it's to do with an opinion that is a pre-opinion. I'll to explain. So this next week, which I'm actually going to go and see an IMAX version. I think it's going to be not true IMAX, but close to. The Odyssey, which is Christopher Nolan's new film. So watch out for that review later on this week from a Star Wars perspective. That's moi. And there's been a lot of backlash. Look, I'm not really huge on the history of this particular time that the story is set, but apparently one of the characters was meant to be of a different cultural background, but is a black person. The backlash on this online is huge. Now, I personally think, if a character can be any color or any size, but a version of, I think personally, if it works, it works. And I think personally, if it's going to cause upset, then this is just ridiculous, because it's just, the story is the most important here. What the characters actually look like is secondary. And hopefully or wishingly that the story is going to be really good. And I just think, if you're going to let this woke or non-woke thing or whatever it is distract you, then maybe this film is not it. But I think nowadays, the best decision I've come across is that there was a preview for critics, and this time it was without YouTubers, and it actually gave you an unfiltered opinion on the film. Whether it was good or bad, they were generally pretty good, like really good. It sort of gives you that perspective rather than getting on why, when, how things have to be changed and stuff like that. It just gave you a viewpoint of the whole story coming from these critics. I think that there is, a big yes to me having the critics go in there and check it out, even though I'm not really one to sort of be affected by the critics. I really avoid any reviews or previews to what anyone says until I see the film myself. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because Star Wars tends to have a lot of backlash, and it does come from a lot of YouTubers having disgust in certain things. And I think we all just need to understand one simple philosophy that I carry on in this show, and I believe, even though it sounds a bit spoon-fed, is I think you've got to accept the story for what it is. If you want to change the story, then buy the franchise and create that story, and put it out there and start your series and invest in that. But as far as I'm concerned, the story of Star Wars still has that space adventure about it. It may not be the best, it may not be the worst. It's just a space adventure that still has merit, in my opinion. That might mortify some people out there, but that is my view for this time around. Let's get into the reviews. The reviews this time is of that particular fan film I mentioned earlier in the show. It's on Star Wars Tales Untold. Now, I'll tell you what, this actual fan film, it's a little bit dry, a little bit sort of slow-paced, but I tell you, straight off the bat, this fan film gets a 9 out of 10. The reason why I love this one is because, lots of fan films, when they're in AI sort of thing, you sort of get immersed to the story. And the story of this one had a real prequel feel to it. In fact, it had obviously characters in the actual particular time period. The look was great. The way that they spoke to each other was great. The pacing was great. The look of the background was great. I just think this was, as a story, great. It's pretty simple, but it sort of shows you some interesting insight to how Anakin got his scar. And that's it. It's actually just a it's not a canon thing obviously with fan films, but it really does have some merit. I enjoyed it. I thought the pacing, especially in this particular fan film, was absolutely spot on to how the prequel period was coming across, and the look of it, the feel, the way the acting was, and I think it was 9 out of 10. That's my review for this time around. Let's get into now interviews. Interviews is usually my last video that I had. With the questions that I asked. If you're going to send me any questions, send it to my last particular video. Rather, I don't have an Instagram, I don't have Twitter or X at this stage. There is something out there, but I just don't really use it. I think it's quite simple and easy just to use the YouTube channel. And let me just look it up and get the actual last video. Typing it in now. Let's do this. Okay, we've got this. So anyway, the last particular video we've had, and we've got Michael from Werribee South. Michael from Werribee South asks, the origin of the fossils, exploring the literal dawn of the Jedi and the definitive origin of the Force, a high-risk creative gamble that risks stripping away the vital mysticism of mythology that makes Star Wars feel magical. Okay, so the origin of the fossils, exploring the literal dawn of the Jedi and definitive origin of the Force, a high-risk creative gamble that risks stripping away the vital mysticism and mythology of that makes Star Wars feel magical. Question mark. Star Wars feels magical especially with the Force, no matter what time period. That is the best way and the only way to answer that question in a simple way. Anyway, the next question is by Michael from Werribee South. The legacy of the sequel trilogy to achieve long-term narrative health, should Lucasfilm focus on its upcoming films entirely on moving forward into unwritten future centuries later, or must they continuously release content that retroactively fixes and explains divisive plot points of the sequel trilogy? I think you can create and which is we're going to get through Starfighter being 5 years past the episode 9, you need to connect that trilogy somehow without being scared of it. Because once you become scared of that trilogy as a writer, then you're only going to be just dictated and pushed around by other people other than your own story writing. I don't think the story writing in 7, 8, 9 is that bad. A lot of people think it's bad. I understand. There's high points, there's low points, but you need to sort of not be inundated with the connection of that. You need to move on, but you need to be aware of that time period because you just cannot shun it. Now, some people think we should just retcon it. No. We're underway. That's 7, 8, 9. That's how it is. That's where the story's at. Connect to it in a small way, but move the story forward is what I always say. Anyway, the next question from Michael from Werby South. Can the franchise survive without the Skywalker era? While some upcoming projects like The Dawn of the Jedi, James Mangold, and Star Wars and Starfighter try to explore uncharted timelines, fans are split. One side desperately wants completely fresh eras and characters, while the other side only tunes in for legacy icons like Luke Skywalker, Darth Maul, or Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think Skywalker, in a strange way, really is the Star Wars story, and it really does come side by side. You can create stories without Skywalkers and still be a real Star Wars film. Like Rogue One really did not connect at all. I think not even a word with the word Skywalker in the actual film, even though we saw Darth Vader at the end of Rogue One. Technically, he was a Darth Vader, not Anakin Skywalker. But yeah, I think personally, I enjoy the Skywalker sort of side of things in the galaxy, but you can make stories without them. I think that would be best for TV shows and stuff like that. But I think Skywalker comes side by side, especially in the episodic sagas. We're going to, hopefully or wishingly get to episode 10, 11, and 12 one day or another. And it would be weird without that being in there. It would be a risk without them being in there. You'd have to just be cement in your characters and their names. I even love the name Skywalker. I think it's just one of the greatest creative names across the whole world in cinema. Anyway, that's my answer. So the final question from Michael from Werby South is, should Lucasfilm execute a soft reboot following Marvel's public plans to reset its universe after Avengers Secret Wars? Reports and rumors are swirling that Lucasfilm may consider a massive timeline reset. Critics argue that the franchise is hamstrung by its own strict law constraints, and a soft reboot could allow them to move past the divisive sequel trilogy era. If Star Wars gets a reboot, you'll definitely lose me as a dedicated fan. I've been on this pursuit with Star Wars for 30 to 40 years. Like I mean, I saw episode 4, A New Hope, at the drive-in when I was a kid in 1977. You never really thought it was going to take it to this point in time, but especially when they announced doing the prequels 1, 2, and 3, which was about 1997 or 98, where they announced it, and they said they're going to go backwards to go forwards. Lucas actually didn't go forwards. He sort of came to an end, even though on the internet he did say he was going to go forwards after that, but he sold it to Disney and they went forward. I just think having a soft reboot or a big reboot is going to make massive news. I will not watch Star Wars, but I just think my enthusiasm would be diminished a lot. I think it would be it would be interesting to see if they did that, what the fans really would react to that, because I think there would be a bit of backlash and there would be a lot of people praising it. It really jolt the system. That's what I think. But I'm not really into rebooting. I think, you know, if a film is good, if the story is good, if it's underway, then you just got to keep just pushing through. There's some things out there that I don't think should have been made because the original was just as good. For example, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I think the original didn't need a remake. It was just as good as it was for then, and the remake was okay. It was a bit freaky, but still okay. But still, I just didn't think it needed a reboot. That's in my humble opinion. Anyway, that's the show for this time around. Subscribe to the channel, The Force Always. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week. In fact, next week I've got a couple screenings to attend to. One advanced screening of an Australian film, but I'm going to give you a Star Wars perspective, just coming from me, what I think of that particular film. So it's something, you know, a bit off the grid. And obviously Odyssey's coming out next week. Everyone's looking forward to that now. This year's been a big year for blockbuster type entertainment films, and that will definitely be, I'm going to be seeing a midnight screening of that, so that's going to be interesting how it pull up and things like that. Anyway, you know, if you've got any questions, you know, whether it's trivia related, I'm not Mr. Trivia, but I'll give it a shot. Just questions to myself, you know, opinions or comments, to send them in to this particular video. For the next one, I can answer or respond to them. And until next time, my friends, keep rocking.